Welcome to Authors Allies, the podcast where we dive into the world of authors, books, and the art of storytelling. Join us for in-depth interviews with celebrated authors, insightful book reviews, and practical tips on marketing your literary masterpiece. After 20 years publishing magazines, I, your host, Rebecca Paciorek, am so thrilled to be able to work within my dream of promoting authors and their books. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your journey, we've got something for you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of books together. Welcome back to the show, friends. Today we are diving into the captivating world of storytelling with a guest who wears many hats. Cari Dubiel is a librarian, a mindfulness advocate, a book reviewer for Booklist, and of course, a talented author. From award-winning mysteries like How to Remember to her latest collection, I Loved the Mothman and Other Stories, Cari weaves tales that explore the depths of human experience and the mysteries lurking in the shadows. We'll be discussing her unique journey, her love for libraries and cryptids, and the craft of writing itself. Get ready to be inspired as we welcome the extraordinary Cari Dubiel. Did I get it right?
Hi. Yep. You're good.
Yay! I'm so glad. And, you know, it's funny because, of course, your Author's Guide to Libraries was the big inspiration for wanting to have you on the show. And I didn't even mention that in the introduction because, you know, I've been having so much fun with the Mothman book.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you introduced me to the Mothman. I had lightly heard of the Mothman before, and I had started seeing your book, and it was so funny because that was right about the time that our son, you know, went to the Mothman Museum and had to get his picture with the Mothman outside. And I even stopped and got my picture just for funsies on my way through there not long ago. So that one just kind of caught my attention. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I know it's hard for you with so many things going on to take time out of your schedule. So I'm very appreciative of that. You wear a lot of hats.
I do.
When I looked at your list, I thought, holy cow, like you are doing so many things. How do all these things like intersect? I mean, does it all obviously goes together somehow? How do they intersect and kind of tell us what the scoop is on all that?
Yeah. So a lot of my stuff I do, as you mentioned, a ton of stuff. But I kind of have to prioritize based on what's due at the moment or what's the most important. So I'm not going to, like, for example, I might have a bassoon concert. I do have one on Monday, but I couldn't go to practice last week because I had a talk.
Oh, wow.
So I can't always, you know, I might have a week where I do a concert or an event, and then the next week I don't have anything. So I'll work on either writing or I'll work on my editing. I just had an editing project due. So that was like, okay, no editing or no writing for a couple weeks. So we're going to work on editing, get that done and turned in. And then now that's done. So now I can go back to whatever else is on the plate. And it's just kind of like a Tetris. You put things where they need to go. If my kids have something, or like today we're going to see the Minecraft movie.
Oh,
they cannot wait. They're so excited.
Yeah.
They were so upset that we couldn't go last weekend, but we could have gone, but I was like, my sister, we wanted her and her son to come with us. So we had to wait till today.
Well,
so it's all good.
That is so fun. Well, and I mean, your job is full-time though too, right? Like, oh my goodness. So then you have to fit that in. I mean, there's the work thing, you know.
And, you know, it's funny because I work 37 and a half hours and I only work like 20 minutes away. So
good.
My job and my flexibility at my job makes it a lot easier. And that's not the case for most librarians. Most librarians are either driving a ways or their hours are not flexible. As a person who's worked in a library for 27 years, I have worked my way up to this position.
Okay.
I've always done stuff kind of on the side but it's only until now that I've been able to pick up extra on top of what I already did.
Okay. Is that partially because your kids are older now too?
That
Like, I know
too,
it's got to
yeah.
be really hard when they're little,
They don't need me very much anymore, and most of what I do is at home.
Yeah.
I don't go out. Like last week I did, this past week I've been pretty busy. I was
Yeah.
out on a job all day yesterday, 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then Monday I had a talk, a training at work, and then I had a talk in the evening. So I was pretty wiped this last week.
I would bet. That is a lot.
Yeah.
On top of all that. Well, speaking of your talks, I know that I read that you teach mindfulness to
I
library
do.
workers.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into that? And have you seen it help? Because I know I personally have really started doing a lot of mindfulness and meditation exercises recently, and it helps me a ton. For the library workers, I know that when we've talked before, you said it's a more stressful job than a lot of people realize. So,
Yep.
so how did you get kind of pulled into that aspect of the job?
It was coming from the stress point of being a young parent.
Mm,
I was a manager at that point, so I had it was a small department, so I had a small group of direct reports, and I had become promoted, or I'd been promoted 2 months before I had my son, my first son. So it was just kind of like, eh.
well,
So I
stress.
had started looking at some options, and
Okay.
mindfulness it's not a religion thing for me. That I
Okay.
know there's a lot of meditation in Buddhism, and there's a lot of really good tenets that I like, but it's not something I practice
Gotcha.
as a Buddhist. I do more of like grounding work, like
Okay.
breath work,
Yeah.
being in the moment, not catastrophizing or
Mm,
dwelling, which
mm-hmm.
I'm not good at it myself. So I
Me
think
too.
practicing it is really important. And as we talked about before, people think libraries, I mean, yesterday I was on branch visits for the Toledo library system, and everyone I talked to said the same thing. They, everybody thinks it's just a nice quiet library, and it's really not. Like anytime you work with the public, people upset about fines, people upset about if I can't give them what they want with a notary or a passport,
Mm.
they didn't bring their birth certificate, all sorts of random things. I've had people get in fights. We had a
Oh my
fight
God.
last week. The lady wasn't respecting the quiet area, and the other gentleman was mad. And so he started yelling at her, and she yelled back.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
wasn't there, but I'm just like, it really bothered me, because
Yeah.
the woman wouldn't stop yelling and wouldn't stop talking in the quiet area. And I'm just like, she's the one breaking the rules.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand why they wanted to accommodate her. She complained, I guess because he yelled at her, but it, stuff like that happens all the time. And especially, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Librarians and library workers don't get paid very well at all.
Yeah.
So if it's a career or a job you really want to stay in because you love it, that's great. But at the same time, you need some way to cope with the
Right.
stress.
And so the mindfulness is definitely going to help that. And you've taught that to your workers, to your other fellow librarians, and how to do that. I love that because yeah, I kind of always thought, oh, that sounds like the perfect retirement job, right? And things like that. But yeah, when you think about it, I was a cashier once and people would get mad at me too, and yeah, anytime you're facing the public, really, you are up to that. I mean, even just, I get to basically hide behind my computer all day working online. However, there's still trolls out there. So there's still haters no matter where you are, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing anything that's out in the world, you're going to get that. Um, Tell me about the reader's advisory. Like, I had down here, as someone who has presented on a reader's advisory, what are some key trends that readers are looking for today? So are you seeing anything, like, I know romantasy seems to be hot. Is there anything else that seems to be like a big thing going on with what readers want?
Yeah, it's very segmented right now.
Mhm.
It's the TikTok readers
Mm.
and then the kind of traditional readers.
Okay.
So anything on TikTok, romantasy, obviously, but then also some different kind of romances. Lucy Score is big
Yep.
right now. Colleen Hoover's starting to taper
Fade out
off,
a
but
little.
she's still
Okay.
popular. Frida McFadden is really hot
Yep.
right now, and she's kind of got some crossover into the more traditional readers who like thrillers or they like
Okay.
book group books. We get a
Yep.
ton of people want, okay, what should my book group read?
Okay.
So things like Lessons in Chemistry. I just read that. That was really good.
That's on my
Um,
list.
oh, it was I loved it so
Yeah.
much. And book group books, I'm not always 100% in on. So,
Me too. Me
um,
too.
thrillers, ever since Gone Girl,
Yeah.
thrillers have not come down in popularity.
Really? Okay.
Locked room thrillers are big right now.
Okay.
It's ever since Lucy Foley, the guest list. I feel like those might be dwindling a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I'm still seeing locked room mysteries showing up on the scene quite a bit. And
Interesting.
it's hard sometimes to get fresh perspectives on those things. So,
Yeah, they all start to sound the same after a while. And I've noticed that even when I've gotten on my Libby library site, all the covers look the same. Like, I'm getting bored with all the fantasy covers that they just all look the same to me. They all kind of blend. And then even a lot of the romance, type stuff is all got that like cartoony look to it, kind of a thing, and it all starts to blend. So I can imagine that might be tough, like you said, to get those different perspectives. And for an author to do something a little more unique that will make them stand out too in that type of a crowd. And it's interesting, you mentioned BookTok, and the TikTok books. Do you have in your library, it was interesting, there's a huge like warehouse, and oh my goodness, of course the name totally escapes me, in Dayton, that is like $1.25 a book. It's
mhm,
it's this unbelievably huge place, okay? And they have like a little book talk section. And I've been to
mhm.
other stores where they have whole sections dedicated to book talk. Do you have that at the libraries that you're working into? Is that, I mean, you said people come in and, are they saying, I want to find this book that was on Book Talk? Is that like a thing?
Not in my library. I know they're on BookTok because I get a list every week of what's on hold for people.
Oh, gotcha.
And I
Okay.
know from
Yeah.
that it was on BookTok.
Like I
I am
saw
not a TikToker. I tried for a little while. It
that.
is just, I am too old for it. And
What?
it's, it's cool that it's bringing readers in. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that we're getting
Mhm.
more people interested in reading. I see a lot of people using Libby, the online
Right.
media. But yeah, a lot of what I purchase and put on display is things that people have requested.
Okay,
Um,
so that's good. So it's like
yeah,
you said, I mean, are you feel like a resurgence of actual books? Because I know a lot of people are trying to start limiting their social media exposure in some ways, instead of just scrolling for hours, all the mental health aspects of reading are kind of coming about. Are you seeing a resurgence in general, you think, of readers from what you guys see?
I inside the library, it's hard to tell because people are way more inclined towards
Yeah,
ebooks right
they're
now.
safe.
It's so
Yeah,
simple. There's no
it
fines.
is.
You can listen in your car. The print side of things is still keeping up pretty well. The last
Okay.
couple months it's been down a little, which is a little stressful because I order the print fiction, which is like, okay, you've been there for so long, you get the best collection, which is the
Love
print
it.
fiction. Um, the media though, like the books on CD,
Mhm.
CDs, DVDs, all of that is just plummeting, and because of streaming, and
Oh,
specifically
okay.
books on CD. Books on CD are, we have board games and we have library of things.
Mhm.
People can check out all sorts of random things that are not books, things people might want to try before they buy, or they just need for a minute. I need a stud finder for the weekend,
I love that.
Um, we have tons of that stuff. That stuff goes out more than the audiobooks on CD
Really?
because
Wow.
no one's cars have CD players anymore.
I noticed that at our library. The last time we talked, I was like, okay, I'm going to the library today because I wanted to go and see. We have like a new maker studio at the Middletown
Mm-hmm.
Library. It's really, really impressive. But I noticed something interesting in that same regard. There were way less books on CD, like there were hardly any of them. But we have these little, it almost looks like an old Walkman or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you just plug your headphones directly into it.
Yeah,
Like,
Playaway.
it thank you,
That's
yes.
what it's
I did
called.
not know
Yep.
what that was called, but I thought that was kind of genius. That way, if your car doesn't have it, or, like, for people who are maybe not quite as tech savvy, or even my
Mm-hmm.
husband, he doesn't have Audible and stuff like that. I said, your next trip, just get one of those." That seems pretty interesting. Is that becoming more of a thing, or are those phasing out too, you think? Just the whole thing with the streaming availability.
Yeah, they are phasing out a little bit more. I just think as the population gets more tech savvy, it's
Mm,
easier
yeah,
for people to download. I mean, I remember back in the day when I started in libraries in 1997, but I didn't become a professional librarian until 2005. And
okay.
at that time, downloads had just started and they were hard to download. Like you had to have,
Yeah.
your computer with your internet, which was still pretty rare back then. You had to have a client on your computer that you could plug your MP3 player into, transfer the files.
Oh my
Then
god.
you had to plug the MP3 player into your car, and you might not even know how to do that. But now it's like press a button. Like
So easy.
it's changed so much in the last 20 years. So the more and more people get turned on to that, the fewer people check that stuff out. Um, there is one lady at one of the home delivery stops that checks out 40 every week. No, every month. Every month she
Wow.
checks out 40. And it's funny because she doesn't. I asked her which ones do you like the best, and she just said, "Oh, I don't remember." I just listened to them to have something to do, and so I'm like, "All
It does
right, well,
become some background. I can
gives
only
you
listen
something to
to
do."
certain ones. Yeah, like, I I mean, I still love just an actual book, right? Like, I'm kinda old school. I love the smell. I love being able to highlight and tab and do all the things. But I stream a lot too, and read on my Kindle because my office is small, and this is the only space I really have to be able to put books. Like, I had to get rid of
Hmm.
a bunch of books when we downsized our home, and, that's such a great way to be able to have a lot of books still and read a lot of books.
Yeah.
Um, Thinking about the libraries and looking at your book here, what prompted you to write the author's guide to libraries? And, like, what kind of takeaways would you have for authors? Because I know, like, you can see my book of yours is well read. I have it tabbed. I have little highlights. I have all the things in here because I learned so much. What prompted this, and what can you tell us, like, from an author standpoint, that you think they really need to know?
So I couldn't tell you what the actual genesis of it was. I think it was kind of bopping around in my head for a
Yeah,
while. I was the library liaison for Sisters in Crime for 5 years from 2012 to
fun.
2017. They're a professional writing group. There's a national chapter, and then there's, well, national organization, and then there's regional chapters. So I would get people constantly asking me about how to get into a library, how to work with a
Mm,
library, how do I get my book in, all of that stuff. And I think at some point it just kind of like all boiled over having to answer those questions over and over and just be like, okay, this is the book. If you
It's
want
the
to
giant
know,
FAQ.
here it is.
That's great. That's
And
great.
I'm not sure if it has helped people. I hope it has. I've seen a few people like in my immediate writers group area who have said,
Mhm.
thank you. I've learned so much. Putting it into practice, I'm not sure, but I follow everything that I do in the book when I talk to libraries.
Good.
I was at a different library yesterday, and I asked her, do you ever do local author fairs or author talks? She was like, no, not really. I'm like, okay, move along.
Right? That's so
So,
crazy.
but she did say they have a Comic-Con, but it's the week. I think I have something that weekend. So,
Okay.
but it's you don't push.
Right.
That's kind of the big takeaway. I mean, there's one whole chapter where I whine about people who have done me wrong over the years.
But you know what? It's like you said about the two people that were fighting in the quiet section. It kind of it's like, yeah, why would you walk into a library and demand that someone have your book or this, that, or the other? The thing that really struck me when I was reading it was the concept of don't just think you can drop your books off to the library and they're going to have them there. Like to me, I would think just as a general, patron of a library, I'd be thinking, okay, libraries are always trying to raise funds. I would have thought if an author donated books to the library, how nice. The library has free books, right? I was really surprised when I was reading that a lot of those books end up in the sales later or
Mhm.
could even end up in the recycling. So I think it's really important to me looking at that to find out the system that each library is going to have its own system, its
Yeah.
own, like forms for accepting your books. And then the
Mhm.
same thing with the events. I know that I work with several children's authors, and I think we may have talked about this before too, but the events in the children's section, like I assume that's a really difficult with all the dangers out there
Right.
today. Do you even
Mhm.
allow an author to come in and do a reading, or is that really just dependent on the library, you think?
It's dependent on the library. You might have a small town community that might want to do something like that, but we have strict rules that no one
Yeah.
is to do a story time other than our librarians,
Okay.
unless it's something community based. So we had the African American read in where we invited
Oh, yeah.
community members to come in. We might have, I know that one of the elementary or primary schools in Twinsburg has come in and the cops read and the librarians read and the
Yeah.
mayor read, that kind of thing.
Sure. Those are
But
great.
yeah, I know it's and it's funny because I always say to children's library author or children's authors, get some kids together and read it to them, but
Yeah.
you can't really do that in an official capacity. And please don't recruit kids from the library. So like you kind of have to use your network. Like,
Right.
who do I know that has
Okay.
grandkids or kids that I can read to? You can usually find some kids that
Some of the
are
schools.
connected to. Yeah.
Yeah. The
But that
schools,
is
the churches,
important. Um,
to get the kids to read the book, to get the feedback and
Yeah, because that is, I mean, kind of going back to the other thing, I see a lot of local author children's books are independently published usually that are
okay.
just not quite the right age level.
Okay.
So you might have a picture book, but it has, two paragraphs on one page where it just doesn't quite match
Mm,
the pictures and the
gotcha.
reading level. And that's kind of where you have to get that workshopping from other writers and kind
Okay.
of beta testing it on people.
That makes sense. I mean, and I think you have to do that whether you're writing children's books or, books for adults too. I
Yeah,
mean, the beta
for sure.
testing, write a few chapters of your story and just kind of have people look at it to make sure you're even going in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's, I'm sure really important. Um, so I had seen that in addition to being a librarian, you are hooked up with Dustbound Books. So
Yes.
that's where you do your editing. And basically, if I understand correctly, you're a hybrid publishing company. So there are a few of you that basically kind of pulled together. How does that work? Is
Mhm.
that, am I thinking that through
Yeah.
correctly?
Yeah. So there's 5 of us.
Okay.
I do editing. One person does graphics and covers, which she's
Okay.
amazing. One person
Yay.
does formatting.
Okay.
And then 2 are kind of like your jack of all trades, proofreading, beta reading. They don't really do a lot of editing, but just kind of like general feedback.
Okay.
And then one of those is our author wrangler. So if
Author
we,
Wrangler.
yeah, so we try to put out an anthology every year.
Okay.
It's kind of a long story because we used to be a different organization with a
Oh, okay.
lot of members. It was founded in 2018. It was called Writing Block.
Okay.
And there were an initial set of officers. There were 6 of us, and everybody kind of dropped out,
Okay.
leaving me kind of to shoulder
Oh,
a
goodness.
burden as an officer to a very large group.
Okay.
And so a couple people stepped up and said they would help me. And I was like, oh, thank you, But
Yeah.
the membership wanted a lot. They wanted us to publish their books. They wanted like events and
Okay.
workshops and stuff. And I'm not like poo-pooing any of these people. Like they're all great people. They still write for our anthologies. But it got to the point where I wasn't making, none of us were, there was no ROI because we weren't even making money.
Well,
Like
yeah, and
we were
you're just
making
single
nothing.
people. I mean,
Um, so I, we were like, you know what? We're breaking away. We're publishing our own stuff.
yeah.
And then a lot of people in the group were like, so you guys are basically just going to publish your own stuff, that, kind of implying that we're selfish or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because this is a business and
Right. Like
we
we're
need to
off
make our own
everything
money.
too. Yeah.
Um, I would say like most people understood, but I still got a
Sure.
little bit of this like, resistance. But because of that, we still try to put out an anthology so
Okay.
that people have an opportunity to contribute if they still want to be involved with us as humans, I guess.
Sure.
And everything else we do is our own stuff. We will, you can hire us to help you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost we don't, it's not like She Writes or something like that, where
Gotcha.
you pay, $4,000 up front and they do everything for you. It's not like that. We
Gotcha.
do, we provide you with the tools you need. If you choose, we we have different packages. So like if you told me you needed copy editing and proofreading, then I would quote you a package for that.
Nice. Okay.
If you needed a cover and proofreading, we'd give you a package, formatting and cover, or everything. So we
I love
quote
that.
based on, what people need.
And so everyone there has already, they've done their own book. So you're all authors already and you
Hmm.
know the systems and all that. No, that's great because I'm encountering more people who have had really bad experiences with publishers, and if you can't see me, that's an air quote thing going on because you see in all of these Facebook groups, oh, I was contacted by XYZ Publishing and they want to publish my book for $10,000. I'm like,
Right.
they just don't understand, and it's really difficult because you just you don't want to say, hey, really, you need to think this through, and so I love what you're doing with that. I think that's really helpful for people to know, and I'll have links to all that stuff in the notes for people too if they want to be able to reach out and do that. So you still do the anthology, which is neat because it's a great way for someone to break into the industry if maybe they haven't published their own book
Hmm.
yet.
Get some
They can,
credits.
yeah, I love that. They can kind of get that going. Um, with looking at all of that, I don't want to forget to ask you about the Mothman. Of course, that one's on Kindle. So if I try to hold him up, he has to be like in the light. So is that your latest book? Let's see, I Love the Mothman. I don't know if people can really see that very well, but I Love the Mothman and Other Stories. That is your latest book.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what inspired that? Because that is just so intriguing to me. You've written a lot of different types of books. So this one is really different, especially if you look at the library book.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you last time I do exactly the opposite of what I tell writers, which is you're not
I love
Stephen
it.
King. You can't do everything, and then I do everything.
And then you do it all.
I mean, so I had an agent until September of last year.
Okay.
And she didn't want me publishing any mysteries or thrillers, which is kind of like my thing that I've been working on for years.
Right.
So I kind of branched out.
Sure.
And then I got dumped by my agent. So now I'm going, all right, now I have all these mysteries and thrillers that are
Right.
in the cubby here. So I'm going, all right, I got to figure out some kind of brand here. I think most authors would use pen names, but
Sure.
I've already gone too far down that rabbit hole of doing different things with my name. So we'll just,
You just
if
thought
you're in,
going.
just work on the branding. I think we've got the nonfiction, and then we've got contemporary, and then we've got speculative. I think when you think about it that way, that's pretty close to what it is. So where Mothman showed up was we went to the museum. I always thought cryptids were stupid. I was like, why do people believe in these?
Yeah.
I still don't believe in them. But once I was in the museum and I was absolutely fascinated by all the lore behind it
Right.
and just paper clippings and all these books and just the whole zeitgeist of it in that town in Point Pleasant,
It's
Virginia.
amazing.
And I don't know, I just started researching a lot of these creatures, and I thought this is like modern myth. And I've always loved mythology. So
Okay.
I started thinking, okay, well, if you think about Greek mythology, there's so many creatures,
Right.
there's Zeus and the swan and a bull and all of those
Yeah.
things kind of connect with each other and create different sorts of characters. And so that's kind of where it ended up, that I would just be like, oh, well, I have a truth that I want to say. How do I represent that with a creature or a legend, basically? Or I have a legend. What does this legend mean? And how can I tell that story in a way that conveys that? So I don't know. It just happened. And people
Well,
love cryptids. So
they do. And, I thought that was a really great way to just pull all those stories together. Like you said, you had them kind of sitting there. They're like on your back burner, right? You're like, okay, I have this content, what do I do with it? What a great way to just kind of pull it all together, give people some, good bits and pieces. My attention span is just not what it used to be. It's so hard for me now to sit down and just read a book. I don't know if this is an age thing. I'm going to blame menopause because it's so much easier to just blame it. But it's harder than it used to be for me. So being able to sit down and read a short story like that is really fun, because then you feel like you've accomplished something and you don't have to stay up till 3 a.m. to finish the story, which is nice. And you just get those little bits and pieces. So I thought it was really fun. I've read several of the stories in there. I'm not done with it because it's one of those books that's kind of neat. I go, well, I'm in the mood for this, right? So like you can just pick it up and read a little story. You don't get lost. You don't forget where you were, which is nice about an anthology. I love that concept of that. So it's really fun to be able to do that. Are you working on something new right now? Like what is your next project you think that you're working on?
Yeah, so I've got a couple things in the pipeline, so to speak.
Neat.
There is Detective Mothman, which is a sequel or,
Fun.
more short stories.
Okay.
That I'm hoping to have out in October, but it may not happen because I'm getting a little close to the knife edge there, and I still
Okay.
have.
Little
I've
writing.
got 4 more stories to write?
Okay.
Yeah, 4 more. I've got 4 more to write, so I don't know if I'll make it because that's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 words.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then I still got to edit it and have it beta read and everything. So that may not happen. If it doesn't happen in October, it'll be next October because it's Halloween.
Sure.
And
Perfect.
another thing for next year, definitely next year, because I got to work on this really hard, is Author's Guide to Bookstores.
Ooh, yay.
I have always been fascinated by bookstores and how they
Yeah.
operate. I've never been in retail. I've never been in kind of like that selling business. But ever since I started selling my own books, I've started thinking about it. And so I've been interviewing booksellers. I've been
Oh, I
reading
love it.
about the history of bookstores, but I need to be able to present that in an
Right.
authentic, true fashion. So I need to talk to everyone before I write that. So that'll be next year too.
Okay. That's a
Um,
great companion to the Author's Guide to Libraries. I love that.
yeah, I'd like to update Author's
Okay.
Guide because there's already been some changes,
Sure.
unfortunately, to library funding and a few other kinds of things like AI and things like that I'd like
Sure.
to add more about. And I can do them as a box set or I can do them
Mm,
separately, those 2 books.
I love
Um,
that. I love that.
and then
Um, and then you sorry.
uh, all 4 of my books that are in the you know trash heap that didn't get picked up by publishers, those are going to come out. I really believe in all those stories,
Good.
and just because an editor didn't care for it doesn't mean that a reader won't.
Absolutely.
So those are going to come out, and I'm still pursuing some traditional publishing possibilities, but
Yeah.
it's more likely that I'll continue in the indie space.
You have a lot in the hopper.
I have a
And a
lot.
family and the bassoon events and
Yeah,
the oh my goodness, and that full-time job thing, and I mean that is a lot. So you sound like a person that does not like to be bored.
this is absolutely correct.
So with all of the writing that you do, and is there a routine? Like we talk a lot of writers have a hard time going, okay, I'm going to write, I'm going to do 10,000 words today, whatever their goal is, right? Do you have any advice for other writers on getting it done? Like, is there a routine? Is there something special that you think works to help you because you are so busy, particularly? Is there something that you like? Do you plan times? How do you make it happen?
In a way, some planning, but
Hmm.
it's very piecemeal for me,
Okay,
particularly. It's whenever I can get some free time. So if it's on my lunch break or it's
mm,
maybe I think it was last weekend or the weekend before my husband took my kids somewhere. So I was like, all right, I
nice.
have 3 hours.
Wow,
Let's knock out some stuff. So like an hour and a half of
a
writing at
lot.
that time.
Yeah,
It's just whenever I can get, even if it's only like 10 minutes at the waiting in the doctor's office,
yeah.
I can write on my phone. Everything is in Google Docs. I hate writing on my phone, but sometimes the urge just strikes you. Um,
Yes, I was going to ask about that. So, in general, you're using Google Docs,
Mostly,
and
yeah.
so you're not writing by hand. You're more of, typing it as you go kind of thing.
Yeah, I do occasionally write by hand depending on where I'm at.
Sure.
Lately I've been kind of lazy and writing on my Kindle Scribe because I don't want to get out of bed.
Sounds
Um,
good to me.
but then I can upload the pages to the
Okay.
computer. I haven't tried it in a while, so I don't know if it'll work, but I would like to try and upload them and OCR,
Okay.
transcribe them. I feel like I've done it before, but I can't remember. But even that, if I can't, I at least have the PDFs
Sure.
that I can work from.
Now, do you ever do like, are you a talk texter while you're driving? Would you like, text your book, talk your book, into the Google Docs? Because I know a lot of people like to do that too, because they feel like they can do it faster. For me, I worry that I'm going to screw it up when I do things like that, but
I'm not good at that. I'm not an audio person.
okay.
I do have a friend, I think I mentioned this before. She's very prolific. I have no idea how she does it. She's a vampire fantasy writer,
So
and
fun.
she puts out these books, like these tomes, and she'll put
Oh my
out like
goodness.
6 a year, but she will dictate sometimes, which
Okay.
she was like, yeah, I got 4 or 5 chapters done when I'm on a walk. I'm like, well, if it helps you. But she said that's all she ever wants to do is write.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
That's
well,
amazing.
if it's making you happy and you enjoy doing it and you're making money, then that seems good to me.
Right?
Not all writers have that luxury,
Right.
I think
Oh,
she's
yeah.
retired.
Is she?
She
Okay.
looks way younger than she actually is, so I can't remember exactly how old she is, but I feel like
That's
maybe
so
she's
funny.
retired.
That is so funny. Well, yeah, and there are several authors that I know of that put out a lot of books in a year, and I think, how in the world do they do that? There, unless you have ghostwriters, or that's literally the only job you have, like you said, like with her, I just don't. I'm always amazed, when you see, oh my goodness, like, and then there's writers that put out a book a year, and it's just really what makes you happy. Like you said, what you're able to do, what makes you happy, what you and your family have the capacity for,
Right.
and it's just it's always fun. So it sounds like the Kindle Scribe is a thing for you. So that's a tool
Yeah.
you use. You're using Google Docs. Where do you typically publish your books? Do you use like Ingram, or as an indie publisher, is there one specific program that you like better than others?
I use 3 different distribution methods,
Okay.
Amazon, Ingram, and Draft to Digital.
Okay.
Draft to Digital is for ebooks only, but you can reach all of the other platforms other than Kindle.
Okay.
Ingram is for books. Lately I've been struggling with them and kind of irritated by them, but they're the only way you can get your book into a bookstore. That's the only way
Okay.
the bookstore can
Yeah.
purchase from, if they don't want you to just give them books.
Right.
Um, and then Ingram can also be like a printer for you. So if you need to buy copies for yourself, Amazon's the same way. There's multiple avenues
Multiple
to print
ways.
from. I also have started printing with a local company, 48 Hour Books.
Nice.
They are very expensive to ship. So a lot of
Mm.
people like around here, around the US are like, oh, they're great, but they're too expensive. I'm like, well, I live down the street.
Right.
So
They're right
I'm
there.
I'm very lucky. I can walk right in and get customer service right inside the front door. Their product is heads and tails above what Amazon and Ingram can provide.
Wow.
So I've been using them to print my sales,
Okay.
in-person sales. But distribution wise for ebooks and online, you can also purchase directly from me and I will ship it to you. It's on my
Okay.
website. Usually you'll get a little trinket or some magnets or some stickers
That's
or
so
something
fun.
when I
Yeah.
send those out.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And, it's interesting how all of the printers have different just kind of the different look, the different coloring, the different quality. I know one of our authors was saying recently that they were really not happy when they got their Amazon books after looking at what they got from Ingram. And you see this all the time. People be like, well, this is this cover and this is this cover. And I know there's just a lot of discrepancy there. And so that's nice that you have a local place that you can do that, and be able to really kind of stay on top of that, with the coloring and stuff. That's
Yeah.
awesome. You mentioned buying directly from you, and of course, authors prefer that, right? We love that, to be able to buy directly from an author and getting the goodies,
Getting it
getting that little
signed.
personal touch is so, so nice. And so, I'll definitely have I'll have your website and all the stuff on there, because I know I was so excited when I got my author's guide to libraries and you signed it. I'm like, oh, I love getting signed books. I'm such a fangirl.
I am
I think
too.
people who are readers, they're just excited. Yeah, like we love this. And I know I've mentioned on other podcasts I've done, Ohio has an amazing, supportive, loyal reader community. The cons
Absolutely.
that go on in Ohio, I see these people that are like, they save up all year and they go around and they buy signed books from all
Yep.
the authors. It is amazing to me, and I love it. I love it so much, seeing all of that support, right? Like, I just feel like you all have given so much to us. I've been reading my whole life, and so to me, like, I love authors so much. I'm like, oh, thank you. I mean, just it's just so wonderful for me. Like I said, we're going to have all of your notes. What kind of last words would you have for aspiring authors? If an author is just kind of maybe getting started, do you have any last words of advice for authors to get
Yeah, I
going?
would say, okay, so if you're at the very beginning of your writing journey, don't even think about getting published yet. You
Yes.
might have maybe some ideas in the back of your head. Like, I met a young man who had designed his cover. I'm like, that's awesome. It's something to kind of give you an anchor in what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, but don't rush into publishing, whether it's querying or indie or hybrid or whichever. Make sure you have that work as good as you can possibly get it before you even try, because I see so many people just slapping stuff up on Amazon. They're like, here's my book. And you're like, this is not a good book.
Yeah.
Objectively,
Right.
typos on the cover,
Mm.
poor interior formatting, that kind of thing. The market is clogged with indies and traditional. You just really have to focus on the story you want to tell and how do you make it readable? How do you make people want to read this? Because you're a product, really. You're selling
Yes.
you're selling your product, which is your book. You're also selling yourself as an
Right.
author. Not every author has to do that. Emily Henry, Bonnie Garmis, their books are just popular and everyone loves them. But especially with us indie authors, we really have to put ourselves out there. So if you write that book, focus on writing that book first before you do anything else.
I love that. And like you said, making it the best it can absolutely be. And I know we talk a lot about that too. And I talk about that in the fact that your book itself is your number one marketing piece. I mean, if it's bad, that's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, that's really tough, and I think that's great advice for any author. I mean, even authors that have been out there for a while, I think it's really important for them to remember why they became an author in the first place, and to go back and look and go, oh yeah, okay, this needs to be the best, right? The
Mm-hmm.
best representation of you. And I think that's amazing. So, Authors Allies podcast started out as Books and Brew. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have to ask you, this is a very important question. What is in your cup when you're reading or writing?
Usually coffee.
Okay.
I have
Same.
coffee in the morning, and then I switch to water usually around like 1 or 2, because if I keep drinking coffee, I'm going to be up all night.
Never sleep.
Um, and I don't drink a lot of other beverages.
Me either.
Chai, I like chai. Uh,
Really? Okay.
yeah, I have a really good recipe for homemade chai that I was thinking about
Mm,
doing today, because it's the weather here in Northeast Ohio has been so gloomy. There was some
yes.
sunshine yesterday, but just every day it's like a nice hot cup of tea with milk, basically, and spices.
I'm with you. That or soup. I actually pulled some soup, homemade chicken noodle soup. I saw it in my freezer yesterday and I'm like,
Mm,
I'm pulling this out because I can't stand it. I don't mind if it's cold, but I want sun. Those gray days
Mm-hmm.
are so stinking depressing. And yeah, we need a little bit of sunshine. Well,
Absolutely.
I just appreciate you so much. I love your books. I love what you're doing, and the fact that you're, really out there, helping educate people on how it works. I can't wait to read the author's guide to the bookstores. That's going to be fabulous. And the follow-up to the Mothman. So many good things. I really appreciate you coming on today. And like I said,
Yeah, thank you.
we'll put all the notes. I'll put all your notes in there and your books and send people to your website and all of that fun stuff. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's all for this episode of Authors Allies. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of the literary world. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode where we'll have more fascinating interviews, book reviews, and marketing tips. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review and share us with a friend. To get your free copy of our ebook, 10 Steps to Your Ultimate Book Marketing Plan, be sure to head over to our show notes. Until next time, happy reading and writing.
Tired of drowning in marketing tasks? Stressed about book launches and social media? You're not alone. The Authors Allies Roundtable Done With You marketing membership is your escape. Join a community of authors who understand. Learn proven strategies for creating captivating media kits, running successful ad campaigns, and hosting unforgettable book launches. Weekly meetings, also recorded for your convenience, cover everything from email, marketing, and social media mastery to in-person event planning. Plus, access a treasure trove of worksheets, templates, and resources designed to simplify your marketing efforts. Stop trading precious writing time for marketing madness. The Authors Allies Roundtable is your path to stress-free, profitable writing. Visit www.authorsallies.com to learn more and join today.